I want to actually address Madam Ike. I have been to many entrepreneurship conferences in Africa, US, everywhere. This is some of the best entrepreneurship content I have ever listened to. The stories, the speeches are relevant. The stories of the entrepreneurs are amazing. I am really enjoying myself. I'm supposed to be a speaker, but I'm learning so much from everybody who's coming up here on stage. And I just wanted to say you've done an amazing job. I think the Togolese and some of the entrepreneurs I've met from Benin and other countries around here, stop being so humble about your achievements. Okay? You people are doing amazing things, but I think you hold it so much to yourselves. Some of these products would do very well in Kenya and in the rest of Africa. Be confident, be bold, go out and proudly talk about what you're doing, because I've met some of the best entrepreneurs on this continent at this conference.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Be confident, be bold, which was one of the key elements of our keynote. For now, let me come to you.
Your microphone, it's not on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's such a pleasure to be back in Lomé, and I'm super excited to be seeing everybody again. I think the biggest thing, I think it was Farouk was talking about the journey of an entrepreneur, but particularly from the importance of being financially disciplined. That ability to have delayed gratification is something that is crucial, especially in these times, right? Funding is not readily available. There's a lot of people who maybe came into entrepreneurship for the wrong reasons that are going to exit the scene. Now is the time for people who are builders, because there's no incentive beyond the dream to build. And I also really enjoyed the last panel where some of the entrepreneurs were also talking about some of the difficulties, and I like us to be realistic about the difficulties. Sometimes I like to say entrepreneurship has been reduced to a Forbes cover thing. You look nice, you look really good on the screen, but nobody really understands all that's happening behind that picture. Trust me, if you've been on the sets, they look very disorganized. And it's very much a metaphor for what the actual fact is. So I think those two things really struck me, and I'm glad that people are talking about the realities.
Thank you very much. That's actually an important point. Delayed gratification. Delayed gratification, which Farouk mentioned. And being, in a sense, even self-contented in your own skin. When Farouk told us that some of his classmates who decided to go out, and within a few years they were buying themselves Nikes while still jumping from motorcycle to tricycle. Set up. No, the microphone is going on and off. But that required a lot of tenacity and refusing to succumb to the temptation to simply follow others in pursuit of the good life. And as he mentioned, a lot of us see people on the cover of Forbes magazine and we begin to dream dreams about how we are going to wear all of the designer things from our enterprises without the hard work that is required in the first instance. So thank you for highlighting the point. Maintenant, je passe à vous. Vous avez assez entendu maintenant.
D'accord. Bonsoir tout le monde. C'est un réel plaisir pour moi et un honneur d'être à ce panel ce soir. Ce qui m'a marqué, moi, c'est depuis le début de l'aventure, la force de l'idée. Nous voyageons beaucoup pour aller faire des forums de jeunes entrepreneurs dans d'autres pays. Et tout le temps, je me demandais quand est-ce que le Togo aussi va rassembler des jeunes entrepreneurs. Aujourd'hui, c'est une réalité. Nous sommes tous là, des jeunes entrepreneurs venus de d'autres pays qui viennent dans notre pays pour pouvoir se connecter, partager des expériences, apprendre. Donc, moi, je ne peux terminer pour dire à tout le monde, Yahweh Zolo, soyez les bienvenus au Togo.
Merci beaucoup, merci. Okay, so let's focus a little more and heard from the keynote speaker. He gave us 7 key messages of what makes for an amenable culture and environment for entrepreneurship. And you have been in the business either of driving initiatives or even of supporting others and building capacity. What, in your experience of the environment, encouraging factor for this consciousness of entrepreneurial spirit?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. And when I was thinking about what to talk about here, I always like to be very personal about my story of entrepreneurship as well. I don't like to talk very hypothetically because my own journey has been very difficult getting to where it is that I've gotten to today. And we have accomplished a lot. But as he said, the journey of blood, sweat, and tears is going to be your journey as an entrepreneur. If you're doing something that's going to last for a very long time, it's going to be very, very difficult. And so what has been important to me has been to just have a great self-awareness of first what you can do very well as an entrepreneur, but equally important is to know what you cannot do very well and to be very aware of both, because as entrepreneurs we tend to be very self-confident, very aggressive, and feel like we can take on the world and there's nothing that is impossible that we can do. But as I've grown older as an entrepreneur, I've realized that it's good to be very honest with yourself and just admit, these are the things I'm very good at, but there are other things I need a lot of help with. There's other things which other people can do a lot better than I can do. So I think as an entrepreneur, we need to be very, very intentional about knowing that about ourselves so that we can be deliberate about finding solutions about where to take our business. So I've been very conscious about particularly hiring people who have strengths that align very strongly with my weaknesses. I hate details, I hate financials, I hate operations. I don't like to do any of those things. And it got to a place where I was like, let me not even try and do it. There's other people who do it a lot better than I can, and I always make sure in any team that I build, my number 2 has to be very strong in operations, has to be very strong in financials, has to be very strong in details. Because I'm very good at vision, I'm very good at strategy, I'm very good at thinking of products. But when it comes to the rest, I look for very strong people to help me with that. I have also been very deliberate about putting governance in my business. I don't trust myself anymore, okay? Because I know when the big money comes, I'll get tempted to do things that I should not do if there's nobody watching over me. So I always make sure I have a very strong board, either of advisors or directors, people to watch over me, because I think the biggest threat to my business failing is myself. And I stopped, fighting that fact. I have good things I can do, but I also have dark sides about me, which if left unchecked, I can mess up my business. And so I always make sure I surround myself with people. Somebody talked earlier about critical people, people who are not afraid to tell you when you're doing the wrong thing, people who are not afraid to tell you when you're going down the wrong side or when you need to think twice about certain decisions. So I've been very conscious about making these kinds of decisions, and that is what has helped me to not destroy myself along the path of becoming successful. And so my answer would be very deliberate about taking those kinds of decisions that would help you to strengthen your business.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Ça m'aide à revenir à toi, Medissa, parce que tu es dans la formation. Être entrepreneur n'est pas forcément être manager. Donc, comment gérer ça? Pardon. Oui, oui.
Ça, c'est vraiment très intéressant parce que je dis toujours, en fait, un entrepreneur, surtout en Afrique, soit il a la capacité extraordinaire d'avoir les trois personnalités réunies, l'entrepreneur en lui, le manager en lui et les techniciens en lui. Après, je dis extraordinaire parce qu'il y a une lutte entre ces trois personnalités. Chacun veut être chef. Alors, quand tu prends le technicien, lui, il est dans l'opérationnel. Le technicien est dans l'opérationnel veut dire, qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire là? Par exemple, j'ai un business de restauration. Le technicien, c'est celui qui fait le gâteau. C'est celui qui fait le plat. Le manager, lui, il regarde qu'est-ce qui s'est passé hier. Qu'est-ce qui se passe là? Qu'est-ce qui doit être à sa place? Qui doit faire quoi? Comment? Ça, c'est le manager. L'entrepreneur, lui, il pense à demain. Où est-ce que je vais aller? C'est quoi la vision? Comment je peux faire que mon business soit extraordinaire? Lui, il est mis dans le technique, c'est-à-dire en train de faire son gâteau. Il n'est pas en train de réfléchir à qu'est-ce qui s'est passé hier, les données d'hier et aujourd'hui. Il est déjà sur demain. Alors, aujourd'hui, le véritable challenge, et on va en parler certainement, c'est la connaissance de soi. Il faut être capable de savoir qui on est exactement. Quelle est la personnalité qui prend le pas? Est-ce que je suis plus entrepreneur que manager? Est-ce que je suis plus technicien que entrepreneur? Et une fois qu'on le sait, c'est OK. Donc une fois par exemple que vous savez que vous êtes entrepreneur, vous n'hésiterez pas à recruter un manager pour gérer votre boîte.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, ça aide à compléter Joram. Merci. Maintenant, pour toi, Jael, je m'excuse, j'avais un peu confondu. Jael, est-ce que notre curriculum de formation éducative en Afrique est assez adapté à la promotion de conscience entrepreneuriale? Des fois, j'ai l'impression que nous sommes toujours dans la perspective de former des bureaucrates administrateurs, mais pas forcément des entrepreneurs.
Alors, merci pour la question. Je pense, à mon humble avis, qu'il y a des parties qui sont adaptables, mais il y a des parties aussi sur lesquelles il faut travailler aujourd'hui. Les curricula sont... Parce que ce n'est pas tous ceux qui font le curricula qui vont sortir entrepreneurs. Il faut aussi que parmi eux, des gens deviennent bureaucrates. Mais le fait est que s'il faut choisir d'être entrepreneur, il faut faire le curricula. Parce que moi, aujourd'hui, j'ai une licence en sciences et technologies des aliments. Et c'est tout ce qu'on m'a appris au cours de mon cursus à l'ESTEBA que j'applique sur ma production aujourd'hui. Donc, en fait, c'est une question de communication, de dire aux jeunes, à ce jeune-là qui est en train de faire un parcours actuellement, comment transiter de ce qu'il est en train d'apprendre à l'école à ce qui se fait sur le terrain. En fait, c'est le terrain qui manque à l'autoculant. Parce que si tu as le terrain et tu as ce qu'on t'apprend à l'école, tu peux tout à l'heure, parce que c'est les formules, pour peser, on te dit il faut une balance, il faut ça. Mais à l'université, peut-être, tu n'as pas encore vu une balance. Mais là, dans la pratique, tu es devant une balance. Et il faut appuyer. Et donc, c'est ça qui manque à nos formations aujourd'hui, le côté pratique des choses. Sinon, je pense que nos programmes sont bien conçus, mais seulement c'est tellement théorique que si toi, l'étudiant ou toi, le jeune qui reçoit toutes ces formations, tu ne sais pas comment appliquer, ça devient un problème. Et donc, si un jeune veut aujourd'hui entreprendre avec ce qu'il a appris, il va falloir qu'il aille sur le terrain, aller voir des gens qui le font déjà, pour pouvoir apprendre comment pratiquer ces connaissances théoriques. Merci.
Okay, merci beaucoup. In the session just before our own, Madam Fatoumata Keita was talking about the constraints posed by family. When she wanted to go into business, her father was insistent that she must get a job. This business does not work. Right? Will it be correct to say that an entrepreneur in our context, all of the cultural constraints that sometimes stand in the way, needs a certain degree of rebellion? How much rebellion did you have to do in order to get where you are?
Amazing. That's a great question, because when Fatumata was talking about that, right, I was also thinking back at my own entrepreneurial journey. So my parents worked really, really hard to send me to Canada. And thinking back, it was not the nice thing to do, but the day that I decided I was going to come back to Nigeria to come and build companies, I actually didn't even inform them. I just got on a plane and started heading home to Abuja. And then I stayed with some of his friends. Eventually, he took it cool. You know, he said, okay, let him run. Let me not disturb him. But as we've talked about, the entrepreneurial journey, at some point, there's always a point of breaking. That's what I call it. So things got very tough. And so when things got very tough, I ran home. At the time, my parents were living in Warri. So I ran home to Warri. You know, ate my mother's food a little bit to nurse my wounds. And then, you know, 1 month, 2 months, he said, I cannot have a grown man in my house. So he was being very reasonable. He said, look, you have 3 options. You can go to law school. After all, that's what I sent you to school for. I'm not even angry that you ran away from Canada and came back. But either go to law school, go to business school, or go work for my friend who at the time was the CEO of NLNG. This entrepreneurship thing, I don't think you're ready. Now, at the time, that was not how I saw it at all. It's taken 10 years, me being a parent, me understanding all the things that I did wrong, to now understand, even though I was directionally right and it worked out, all the ways that I was actually wrong in my approach. And that's why I'm answering the question this way, because it's very easy to dive into entrepreneurship with a righteous anger without really listening to those who are set up as guardians over us and that really, really mean well for us. I mean, nobody can mean better for you than your parents. So my attitude is not rebellion. I don't think that is the way I would go about. I was definitely a rebellious, I can tell you for free, I started out as a rebellious entrepreneur. But, you know, as always, I want you to be much better than I was. So I don't want you to live here with the idea that you have to disobey your parents to do entrepreneurship. But I think you have to listen to them and educate them. And for me, you know, ultimately, I mean, we had a big fissure in our relationship. For a time, I couldn't talk to him. I rented an apartment from him without knowing. That's how bad it was, thanks to my mom. Those were all formative experiences for me. But, you know, you know, thinking back at my approach and how to respond in that situation, I think it's worth the effort to educate your parents about what it is you're trying to do. And I'll tell you why. So after Andela, which was the business that evolved out of this rebellion, which I would argue, if I had done it the way my dad had suggested, I might have come out of it. I came out very well, but I would have come out even better. So the next business, I was wise enough to go to him for counsel. And he didn't give me any money, but he gave me one gift. His best friend had just finished a term as deputy governor of the central bank. And he said, talk to him about what it is you're trying to do. And I went and spoke to him, and he became my chairman. And I can tell you for free, there is no chapter of Flutterwave story that you can write without 3 people involved, and he's maybe the top of the 3. Dr. Tunde Lemon, because he guided us really about how it was to build a business that would withstand regulatory scrutiny. So I say this to say, when you engage your parents, and obviously, yeah, I'm not saying that they would naturally be accepting or whatever, but it's worth it to listen to whatever it is that they're saying. However, you also have to have your own, mind of steel, so to speak, your resolve. If you know that this is what you want to do, or this is what you're determined to do, you have to be able to do it in spite of. That is the story of entrepreneurship. But I would say, with the benefit of hindsight, doing things in rebellion is only to your disadvantage. So you should just try to listen to what they have to say. There might be useful points that they're trying to make. You can take those points for what they are. There might be things that you're very sure you're better educated about them about. If they will listen, try and engage them on those points. But try your best not to do it in rebellion.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a certain sense in which you look at some of the most exciting innovations and you have the impression that these are geniuses at work. And a genius, by definition, simply doesn't fit into the normal box. But Joram, you talked about the challenges, and you needed to weather storms. What gave you the hope, the confidence to continue, even in the face of all of those storms?
You're asking very hard questions. Where, if we had to be very honest, I have to give context about Kenya's operating environment, and I think a lot of African environments are like that. One of the things we consciously decided at the beginning of our business was that we were going to do business with integrity, that we were always going to do the right thing. Kenya, I think we are known for corruption and those kinds of things that happen. And so because of that decision, I think it made our business 10 times harder, okay? It meant we had to walk away from deals. It meant we had to turn down certain things. It meant there were places we could not get business because the people we were engaging with were not aligned with us when it came to our values. It meant there are certain employees we cannot hire if they do not believe in the same values as us. It meant there are certain partnerships we could not get into with people who had different values from us. But I think the biggest price we paid was probably in our personal lives, where it meant things were taking a lot longer to take off. With my business partner, we were both married. At some point, the children came, and it gets very, very difficult and very dark when you are engaging with somebody and they're offering that if you give them a bribe, they'll give you a very big deal. And you need to pay school fees and you don't have money in the bank, and you need to pay employees at the end of the month and you don't know where the money is coming from. It can get very tempting to break and give in on your values. But somehow, by God's grace, we survived throughout that entire period. One of the personal prices I paid is that I've gone into depression and had to get treated and see psychiatrists and counselors and all sorts of things to weather some of the very dark. And I'm being very open because there could be somebody in that situation thinking they're different or unique. But that was my journey. And so people may see the end product of success and think that it was easy all through, but we really had a very dark price to pay. Somebody talked about you go for a meet up with your friends and everyone is parking new cars and you're the one who wants to park yours at the back because of the noises it's making, because it's not been to the mechanic for a very long time and it's simply holding itself, you know, by very difficult things. So the journey can be very, very dark, and I just wanted to give that context. But I think because we had a passion to make a difference, I think because we had committed ourselves and we could see that the work we were doing, working with entrepreneurs in Kenya, was making a difference. Companies were growing. People were getting hope, even from our story, that it's possible to do things the right way and still succeed. It was helpful to surround ourselves with like-minded people, and I think this is maybe one very important takeout. Surround yourself with people who have the same values as you and who have the same vision as you. They may be doing other things, but every time you walk into that situation, I have 3 friends. We are all entrepreneurs and we meet once in a while, and we will be very open about how difficult it has gotten. I think one of the difficulties I didn't mention is I'm surprised my marriage has survived this long as well because of some of the challenges that have come through. So in the midst of all these challenges that come up, when you're with like-minded people who can encourage you, who you can be very open with and just say, look, I've gotten to a place I don't even have any money to put food on the table, you know, tomorrow at home. People who can encourage you and tell you, I've been in a worse situation and this is what I did. And so I think that support structure has been important. I think sticking to the vision and the passion and just saying, you know, that conviction, you might also need to be a little bit crazy to stick on that path when everyone else does not see where it is that you're going. But just that conviction that you're making a difference can keep you going. Because every time we wake up and we see the difference we are making, we see the progress that we are making, that encourages us just to keep going and to keep fighting until the change happens.
Thank you very much for sharing so candid this experience. Thank you. Je vais passer à la salle. Je vais prendre 4 questions. D'autres de ce côté et d'autres de l'autre côté. Comme ça, on aura un peu d'interaction entre les panélistes et vous. Mais avant de vous inviter de poser vos questions, je veux m'adresser à nos 2 collègues femmes ici. Si on dit que c'est déjà assez difficile d'être un jeune entrepreneur en Afrique, j'imagine que pour les femmes, c'est encore plus difficile, doublement plus difficile. Donc, Jael, pour toi d'abord, comment, qu'est-ce que tu peux partager avec les femmes qui sont dans la salle? Le fait de balance entre la vie d'un entrepreneur et la vie d'une mère de famille.
D'accord. Alors, je pense que la première des choses quand on choisit de devenir entrepreneur, c'est de s'asseoir face à soi-même et de se poser les vraies questions. Et moi, la plus grande question que je me suis posée, c'est pourquoi je veux entreprendre. Et quand j'ai trouvé la réponse qui est que je veux apporter un plus à ma communauté, je veux apporter des aliments sains à ma communauté et que je veux créer de l'impact positif autour de moi, ça m'a amené à définir ma vision. Et donc, cette façon de faire là m'a permis d'avoir une boussole. Ça fait que je ne tergiverse pas sur mes décisions, sur mes prises de position, ni sur les défis que je rencontre, parce que je sais où je vais, je sais ce que je me suis dit en démarrant. Sinon, l'entrepreneuriat, c'est beaucoup de choses en même temps. Et si tu n'as pas une vision claire, des objectifs bien définis, tout le monde peut te prendre tout à l'heure. Et après ça, il y a eu les valeurs personnelles que je cultive. L'intégrité, la responsabilité sociale de mon entreprise. Je ne fais pas un produit pour moi, je ne crée pas une entreprise pour moi seule, je veux une entreprise qui va rester après moi. Et donc ça, je l'ai toujours dans ma tête, ce qui fait que quand je veux faire quelque chose, que je veux recruter, que je veux aller chercher des clients, que je ne fais pas ça pour moi seule, mais je fais ça pour moi, la génération qui est là et la génération qui va arriver après nous. Donc ça fait que vraiment, j'ai eu un juste équilibre. Et maintenant, pour pouvoir concilier ça, vous avez parlé de vie de couple ou bien vie de famille. Alors, pour ça, si vous savez où vous voulez aller, on dit qu'il veut aller loin, ménage sa monture. Vous devez avoir les caractéristiques de celui qui va vous accompagner, si vous êtes femme. Et vous devez être sérieuse avec vous-même en faisant ce choix-là. Sinon, si cette personne ne croit pas en vous, ne croit pas en votre vision, ne vous accompagne pas, c'est que vous êtes mort. Vous pouvez beau être joli dehors, faire sourire à tout le monde, mais à la maison, ça n'ira pas. Et quand ça ne va pas à la maison, votre business est en partie en même temps. Donc, il faut trouver l'équilibre parfait avec la personne. Il faut s'asseoir, il faut s'expliquer les choses, il faut que la personne soit convaincue ou bien votre partenaire soit convaincu que vous ne serez pas après en challenge ou en ring avec lui. Et donc, je pense qu'avec tout ça, ça facilite moi ma vie personnelle, ça me donne l'équilibre parfait pour pouvoir avancer, que ce soit en entreprise, que ce soit à la maison.
Merci beaucoup. Medissa, quand tu formes les gens, y a-t-il des consignes particulières que tu adresses aux femmes que tu formes qui aimeraient entrer dans le business ou le leadership?
La question, elle n'est pas facile. Je dis toujours aux femmes, disons, le fait d'être jeune, c'est un challenge, d'accord? Nous savons très bien ce que c'est qu'être jeune. Tu es trop jeune, c'est pas le moment, calme-toi, tu as tout le temps, tu es trop pressé. Voilà. Maintenant, quand tu es une femme et que tu es jeune, ça encore, c'est d'autres challenges. Vous savez, moi, j'ai toujours dit, quand je partage mes expériences ou quelques petites connaissances que j'ai, mon objectif n'est pas que les gens aillent appliquer ce que j'ai dit, mais c'est que les gens puissent tirer ce qui peut les aider dans leur vie à eux. Parce que je dis toujours, la plus grande chose qu'on puisse donner à une femme, ou la plus grande chose, sinon je vais me corriger, qu'une femme doit exiger, c'est qu'elle ait le choix. Une femme doit avoir le choix. Je dois avoir le choix d'être femme au foyer. Je dois avoir le choix d'être femme entrepreneur. Je dois avoir le choix d'être une femme professionnelle. Je dois avoir le choix même d'être une femme qui refuse de se marier, qui ne veut pas avoir ci, qui veut avoir ça. Je dois avoir le choix. Donc, mesdames, moi, mon conseil dans cette salle, si vous m'écoutez, si ça peut vous aider, je vous dirai, à chaque fois, posez-vous la question, est-ce mon choix ou il m'a été imposé? Ça peut être la famille, ça peut être la religion, ça peut être la société, ça peut être les amis, ça peut être les idées préconçues, tout ce que vous voulez. Ayez le choix, même de ce que vous allez porter, même de ce que la croyance que vous allez avoir. Vous vous rendez compte que des fois nous nous habillons, pas parce que ça nous représente, mais parce qu'on pense que c'est ce qu'il faut faire. Ah non, avoir le choix. Donc quand on a une femme qui déjà arrive à avoir ce choix, les difficultés, ça devient autre chose. L'une des choses qu'une femme doit avoir, à part donc le fait d'avoir le choix, je ne pense pas que ce soit quelque chose de surnaturel, ça doit être normal. Mais l'une des choses qu'une femme doit comprendre qu'elle a depuis la base, c'est le courage. J'ai jamais vu une personne, un être humain plus courageux qu'une femme. J'ai jamais vu. Franchement, c'est pas parce que je suis une femme, mais je vous demande juste d'observer nos sœurs, nous-mêmes, comment la femme est capable de mettre un enfant au dos, en train de le bercer, en train de faire la cuisine, en train de calmer le mari qui pète les plombs, en train de gérer une situation. Il y a une femme pour faire cela. Et ça, je dis, le courage, ça veut dire courir avec rage. Ça, c'est un professeur sénégalais. J'ai appris ça de ce professeur. Courir avec rage. Ça devait être 2 heures comme il l'a dit. Donc, à chaque fois, la femme, déjà qu'elle a ce côté-là, de courir avec rage pour la plupart, certaines ont inhibé cela, il faut le ressortir. Mais quand vous êtes une femme d'affaires, sachez une chose, il n'y a pas d'équilibre parfait entre la vie professionnelle, c'est-à-dire la vie d'une femme d'affaires, et la vie personnelle. Il y a ce qu'on appelle des sacrifices. Il y a des moments où vous allez abandonner votre famille pour votre business parce qu'il le faut. Et il y a des moments où vous devez dire à votre business, calme-toi, je vais me retrouver en famille. Faites le choix. Et à chaque fois, accepter que dans la réalité, c'est vrai, on peut venir s'asseoir pour dire que nos vies sont parfaites, qu'on a réussi, que tout est OK, mais attention. Il y a une différence comme le courage naturel que le bon Dieu, pour ceux qui croient, a mis en nous. Que ce courage soit notre quotidien, afin que face à chaque situation, qu'on puisse avoir cette rage de sortir de la situation.
Très bien, merci beaucoup. Donc, est-ce qu'il y a des questions? Oui. S'il vous plaît. Présentez-vous et soyez très bref. Ce n'est pas le moment de raconter l'histoire de votre vie. Juste une question précise aux panélistes et ça nous permet de prendre quatre interventions.
Je suis Madame Mébaré, responsable de l'entreprise Génération Gédéon. Ma question est celle-ci. Depuis le début, les intervenants nous ont toujours parlé de leurs difficultés. Ils ont souffert, mais ils ont fini par réussir. Ma question, comment ils ont fait pour réussir? Si je prends l'exemple de monsieur qui vient de dire qu'il a eu des difficultés, jusqu'à il n'en avait même pas donné à sa femme. Mais à un moment donné, il a réussi. C'est un miracle. Ou bien, comment il a passé pour réussir?
Merci beaucoup. Merci. C'est une bonne question. Was it divine intervention or was it something else?
I think if you ask any entrepreneur who's been around a long time and who has succeeded, we kind of end up summarizing our journey that somehow, because at that point when you're at the place where you have nothing and you don't even see a way forward, because that happened very many times where it's, for me, in fact, when it would get to 26th of the month, I start to get very anxious because I can see 30th is coming, people are expecting to be paid, and by many times on the 26th, there's nothing in the bank. But people owe us money, maybe out of the blue the next day somebody comes and makes a down payment for an assignment. Maybe you go and beg and borrow from your friend and you're able to get some money and then eventually you pay back slowly. There are just so many things that you end up doing out of desperation. So many embarrassing things, and maybe that's why we don't want to talk about it openly. Because there are many things we have to do in the background to resolve those situations. And it could be everything from going back home because you cannot pay rent somewhere else. There's all sorts of things we do. But I think because we have that mind of solving problems and being resourceful, somehow we always find an answer. Many years into my business, and maybe about the time my business started being profitable, which was maybe about 7 years in, I would get to the 26th, there's no money in the account, but I know that by 30th, something will have happened and we will have succeeded. And at that point, I would stop being anxious, because before maybe I was worried about where are we going to get the money and everything, but later I would start to trust that we will sit together maybe with a team and figure it out and find a solution, and I've built enough networks, I've built enough friends, I've built enough relationships that amongst all these things that I've been resourceful about, I will find an answer. The more important thing is not how you go about resolving it, is always having the attitude that I will find an answer. I will marshal all the resources possible around me, everything I know, to find an answer for this solution. I think that's what ends up building the muscle for you to find the answer. Because every situation will be different. Your situation is very different. I cannot prescribe my solutions into how you will resolve your own business solutions here in Togo. But if you have the mindset that you will always find the answer, you will look for things around you and put them together and continue building up upon them. It gets easier because you build a brand, you build a reputation, people begin to trust you. You get bigger work, bigger assignments, and you start getting bigger monies because people trust you, and then you find even easier solutions. The problems grow, but because you've built the muscle, you will always find the solution. So I'm not sure I've given you the answer you are looking for, but just have the mindset, and I always say it's a mindset of no excuses. I'm going to figure out an answer for this, and that's what usually makes you innovative enough to find an answer. And many times that innovation is what builds your business to build something unique that makes you stand out over time.
Yes, thank you very much, Joram. I was going to be tempted to go back. I will come back to you on this when we round up for final comments. So let me take the Seki. Okay, vas-y.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis ambassadeur de SAP Biocosmétique. Ma question est celle-ci. Il y a plusieurs personnes qui sont dans les études et qui entreprennent avec. Je voulais poser la question à savoir, est-ce que entreprendre et étudier, ça marche?
Okay, merci beaucoup. Qui va ensemble? Vas-y, Medissa.
Je pense que la question, elle est posée ici parce que ce n'est pas trop notre culture. Je vais me déconnecter de l'Afrique parce que bon, j'ai connu un peu plus ce modèle. Je n'ai pas vécu aux États-Unis, je signale, mais juste j'ai remarqué que ce soit aux États-Unis ou dans les pays qu'on dit développés, il n'y a presque pas d'étudiants qui n'ont pas de petit boulot. Ce n'est pas possible. C'est-à-dire qu'en réalité, moi j'ai dit, par exemple, si Dieu me donne la grâce, quand mon enfant aura le bac, je vais lui dire, prends une année sabbatique, fais autre chose. Fais tout ce que tu veux avant de venir même me dire ce que tu veux faire plus tard. En réalité, je crois que le statut d'entrepreneur, étudiant-entrepreneur, c'est une des solutions, surtout pour l'Afrique francophone. Pourquoi? Parce que ça nous permet déjà d'avoir, disons, des compétences, des soft skills essentielles, comme la discipline personnelle, comment est-ce qu'on organise son temps, la capacité à apprendre des choses pratiques sur le terrain. Au jour d'aujourd'hui, pourquoi on vit la difficulté de l'employabilité? En fait, l'employabilité, par exemple, c'est le fait que, je dis n'importe quoi, on a 2000 ou bien 1 million de véhicules VIP qui sont là pour un projet. On peut vous payer, par exemple, 200 000, 300 000, ou bien vous pouvez même gagner 300 000 par mois, mais il se fait que très peu ont un permis de conduire, c'est-à-dire savent conduire une voiture. Nous sommes à l'ère où il y a plus de diplômés, mais on a moins de personnes capables de répondre aux exigences du monde du travail. Donc moi, je vous dirais, par exemple, lorsque vous êtes étudiant et que vous voulez entreprendre, attention, je ne dis pas de laisser les études pour aller entreprendre, non. Mais l'initiative que vous lancez, c'est une étape préalable. Ce n'est même pas vraiment une entreprise qu'il faut lancer. À ce moment, je vous dirais, ne formalisez pas quand vous êtes un étudiant. Ce n'est pas encore le moment, mais ça fait votre laboratoire de terrain. Donc, une fois que vous apprenez, ou vous allez même travailler pour quelqu'un, je conseille souvent aux jeunes étudiants, je dis, apprenez à travailler pour quelqu'un. Si vous n'êtes pas un bon employé pour quelqu'un, vous ne serez pas un bon dirigeant pour votre entreprise. Ça, les études le montrent. Donc, quand vous initiez quelque chose, que ce soit pour vous-même ou que vous travaillez quelque part comme un intrapreneur, vous allez voir que votre capacité, même intellectuelle, au niveau des études, se retrouve changée en fait. Parce que vous n'avez plus ce côté déconnecté où vous voulez juste valider des unités, où vous voulez juste avoir un diplôme. Une fois que vous entendez, on pèse ci, on pèse ça, vous testez cela. Et vous allez ouvrir davantage votre mindset à apprendre à la fois le théorique et la pratique. Et c'est l'ensemble, le croisement de ces deux qui vont exploser. Donc, s'il vous plaît, n'hésitez pas à chercher du boulot ou à continuer des initiatives privées en vous faisant entourer. N'y allez pas parce que vous voulez de l'argent, juste cela, non. Faites ça pour vous préparer pour votre future carrière que vous prévoyez donc peut-être.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Je passe à ma gauche. Je vois la femme en tenue blanc et blanc.
Merci. Moi, je me nomme Mademoiselle Esther. Je suis dans le domaine du sport et santé. Ma question, c'est quand on parle de réseautage, je vais arriver au niveau de partenariat. Comment faire pour avoir de bons partenariats? Parce que notre frère du Kenya disait tout à l'heure qu'il a eu des gens, mais qui croient en lui et qui l'ont aidé, pas seul à réussir aujourd'hui, mais ces gens l'ont aidé. J'aimerais savoir comment faire pour avoir de bons partenariats.
Okay. It's an important question, which also came in the keynote address in the morning. The importance of collaboration, partnership. It was cited in your absence. Other way, it was a partnership. So please, how did you find good partnership?
Fantastic. See, on this matter of partnership, one of the things I've come to understand over the years of building is that building is best done with other people, right? Even the Bible says it is not good for a man to be alone. There's a way we look at it from a marriage perspective, but I actually think more biblically, what it's trying to say is that it's very difficult to build anything by yourself. So it's always good to find partners. But the challenge most people have, and I would say in my earlier careers I had this, is that we look for partnerships to serve ourselves first. So it's always about looking for a partner that can fill gaps we have, looking for a partner that can work for us, looking for a partner that can serve our interests. And the world is such a place that everybody is looking for that kind of person. So at the end of the day, you end up with few people who are looking like that get it, right? Because you're looking for somebody who's looking for somebody. If you did further maths, or if it's additional maths, minus is plus, plus minus is minus. So that is unfortunately what most people do. What should they do instead? What should you do instead? I always say we get to know people by serving them, right? If you really want to know somebody beyond just what they put on a facade, help the person. Help the person and you really know who that person really is. Finding a good partner, I think, is about, first of all, acknowledging there are things you can do well. Having that confidence is critical. So you know, look, I can beat my chest and say I can do this, right? But then also understanding the things you cannot do well, right? And recognizing that quality in people. Seeing, oh wow, this guy is really good at this. And then the third part, which is the part most people get wrong, is offering what you can do well, right, to other people, and watching out for the response of that person to see if they reciprocate as well, serving you with the things they can do well. Now, there are three things that would likely happen. First of all, you discover that maybe they can't do what you think they can do well as you can. Right? So that's one thing that can happen. Second thing, they may be able to do it well, but they're not ready to serve you with that skill. They're not ready to help you with that skill. Either they want to do it on their own. You understand what I'm saying? They believe they can do it by themselves or whatever. Once you notice that skill, run. Once you notice that trait in somebody, when they feel like they can do it by themselves, run. And then the third thing that can happen is that you both discover, well, I can't actually help you. And you may not be able to help me. Maybe you can help me, but I can't help you. So either you're willing to subjugate whatever it is that you're doing to serve the other person, or you abandon the idea altogether. I'll just end with a story, because I think the story to use Flutterwave is a good example, but I think Andela is a better example because it was an example of the latter, which is the harder part for most people to acknowledge in Africa. Everybody believes they're a star. So when I started, Flutterwave and Andela started out of a company we called Fora. So when I came back to Nigeria, I started a company called Fora. The big idea was professors were teaching in multiple universities. Some of them were losing their lives on the road, going from one university to the other to teach courses. There were never nearly enough universities, professors for the universities, so that would continue to happen. Could we, very early in the game, connect these universities so that a professor can teach in one school and others will take the course? Sounds very simple and straightforward, right? But for some reason, the regulator didn't believe it was a good enough solution. And we have to obey the regulator. So we didn't go ahead. But we pivoted to a business that was doing okay but wasn't great. And then I went to this entrepreneur that I admired called Jeremy Johnson. And I told him, I said, look, you know, I'd like you to invest in this, my idea. That was going okay. I felt like most entrepreneurs feel that money was what I needed. So if he could give me the money and maybe a bit of his connections, I would make it work in Africa because he had tried to do a similar business abroad. He later told me the inside detail of the business and told me it's not a great business, which he was actually very right about. And he started talking to me about this thing he wanted to do. You know, he wants to train young. He feels like there's no point of giving them an MBA if there are jobs that don't require MBAs that pay just as well. Why should you force a young person to spend $80,000 on an MBA when they can earn, and then earn $100,000 if they can even get it in Africa, or earn $50,000 in Africa, when I can spend $15,000 or $20,000 teaching them to be a Salesforce administrator, and they can get $60,000, $70,000 doing it remotely abroad. It felt like the math was wrong. And it's something that my sister alluded to, which is this whole idea we have in Africa that input matters more than output, but that's a whole different conversation. So he then said, okay, I want to try this out in Africa, but I don't know Africa. I know education. I've run education at scale, but I don't know Africa. Would you like to work with me on it? Now, I was the CEO. I owned 70% of my company. I was comfortable. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was okay. I could continue doing what I was doing and make good money, and it will grow slowly, but it will be fine. And then I remembered one thing that one of my mentors said to me, which is that the only way you build $1 billion company is if two people who can build $10 million companies decide to combine efforts. Right? So it's like each of you are capable, you can build $10 million companies, you combine efforts, that is what makes the combined effort not $100 million, but $1 billion. So I said, sir, you know what? You've been fairly successful. I have things to learn. No problem, I'll work with you. So I went from 70% of my own company to 10% in one fell swoop. But I'll tell you one thing that most people don't even know. I spent 2 years at Andela, so I didn't even fully vest that 10%. Maybe I got 5% of it, right? I worked like it was my own business, which is why most people know me by the business, right? But in that 2 years, my salary was, let's just even say, it was like nothing. It was, let's just say $1,000 a month for the sake of argument, right? Whatever that was, for those 2 years, just calculate it. Even call it $2,000 or $3,000, $50,000 a year. I worked there 2 years, that's $100,000. The value of shares I have in Andela, right? Even though I didn't fully vest, even though I didn't spend that much time, but is several times more than the pay that I got in that time. In fact, it's so inconsequential, and every year the gap continues to grow. Why am I saying this? There's so many of us that if we were really to take a proper appraisal of ourselves, right, we would not be the ones looking for partners. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. We will be looking for other people to serve. To say, how can I work with you who has done this so that I can learn from you? And I'll tell you this, everything I know about raising money, about building a big business, everything I learned at Andela. Because before that, I did not know anything. But those 2 years gave me money and, more importantly, skill that money cannot buy. I'm still living off of Andela dividends till today. Probably my children's children will live off of it, right? Because I made that one decision to serve rather than to be served. So that's my advice for you when it comes to looking for a partner.
Fantastic, thank you very much. We take one very last.
Monsieur Combat. Je suis le responsable de l'entreprise Uniforme spécialisée dans le recyclage pour la production de mobilier. Et ma question s'adresse à Monsieur Joram, qui a parlé de l'entrepreneur technicien et donc ma question c'est pas parce que je vais de dire il parlait de l'entrepreneur du technicien et du manager dont on a besoin dans l'entreprise pour son bon fonctionnement. Nous avons constaté que l'entrepreneur, c'est lui qui a la vision. Et il est en train de regarder loin comment faire à ce que son idée se concrétise. Mais le problème que généralement on rencontre, c'est comment trouver le bon manager et les techniciens qu'il faut pour le type de projet que vous êtes en train de faire pour pouvoir atteindre vos objectifs. Et souvent, lorsqu'on lance un casting pour pouvoir chercher ces gens, il est difficile de trouver un spécialiste dans ce domaine par rapport à votre projet. Ce qui fait que l'entrepreneur lui-même se substitue à ces deux personnes, à la fois technicien et manager, et ce qui fait que son résultat n'arrive pas à être optimisé. S'il vous plaît, quel conseil, comment vous pouvez nous aider? Parce que comment faire pour trouver ces managers qui peuvent vous accompagner dans votre vision et les techniciens qu'il faut pour qu'ils puissent vous aider à atteindre vos objectifs? Je vous remercie.
I'll keep my answer very short. Again, I think it goes back to an attitude of resourcefulness and looking. Nowadays, I spend maybe 80% of my time looking for the right person for a role in my business. I put a lot of effort into getting the right people. And this is because I realized good people are not easy to find. They're not just running around and advertising. In fact, the people who advertise themselves are doing it for a reason. It's because they're probably not good, so they need to sell themselves very hard so that they get opportunities. But good people are probably working hard somewhere, you know, putting their head down and working somewhere. And I realize that you kind of have to fish them out of you know, somewhere. And so it takes a lot of networking. For my direct reports, I don't hire anyone that have not been strongly recommended by somebody else, that this person has everything you're looking for that specific role. So I spend a huge amount of time looking for those people, and I'll surprise you, it's not about what you pay them. It's not about what you pay them. People believe, good people, that you have to pay a lot of money and all sorts of things. I've realized people are at different stages in life. Some people come from rich families, they're not looking for the money. Others are just looking to get back into the industry, so they'll take something less to be able to come in, and they'll give you 2 years, but they'll help your company move to the next level. Others, you know, maybe they have another arrangement in their life, so they can afford.
Pas manger, si vous ne vous sentez pas responsable de lui, mais je vous assure que vous allez réaliser un cauchemar plus tard. Donc il faut que chaque chose que vous faites, que vous travaillez pour quelqu'un, que vous lancez vous-même votre initiative, chaque jour dites-vous comment je change la vie des gens. Même en tant que chômeur, on peut changer la vie des gens parce qu'on a des expériences qu'on peut partager. Il faut avoir toujours cette responsabilité-là d'aider les gens à aller mieux, de faire des choses qui peuvent impacter solidairement des vies. Et enfin, ne restez jamais seul. Qui est votre mentor, qui vous accompagne, qui partage votre vie. Qu'est-ce que vous lisez? Il faut apprendre à charger sa tête qualitativement. Une fois que vous remplissez bien votre tête, laissez votre tête remplir vos poches. Et ça, je pense que si on arrive à le faire, on peut y aller.
Merci beaucoup. Joram?
Yep, very quickly, start with the end in mind. What kind of company do you want to build? What's your vision? From 2004, I started my business when I was 24 years old. I always knew I wanted to build a global company, okay? Because I couldn't understand why Africans always relegated themselves to believing they can only do an Africa-wide business. I was like, is it that it's only the Americans and the Chinese and the Brazilians that can build a global company? Or the Indians? Why don't we, as Africans, start with the end in mind? When somebody in Silicon Valley starts a business, they start it knowing it's going to be a global company. Why don't we as Africans, because you're from Togo, you're from Nigeria, you're from Kenya, you're from South Africa, you think the most you can do is Africa? Why? What's the barrier? Is it the boundary? Is it the water? What is it? It's not our intelligence. We know that we have everything to do as they could do. So start with the end in mind. 2 weeks ago, we opened our Atlanta branch for my business. And we become that global company, okay? So do not look down on yourself because you're Togolese, because you're from Benin, because you're from Ghana, thinking that the most I can do is just my country or this continent. Start with the end in mind. If you want to build a global company, it is possible.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay. Moi, pour finir, je vais dire à tous ceux qui sont ici, si vous êtes jeune entrepreneur, vous avez débuté, et que vous êtes ici ce soir, c'est que vous avez déjà fait du parcours. Apprenez à célébrer chaque petite victoire que vous avez, et ensuite, ayez toujours l'esprit ouvert. L'esprit ouvert aux critiques, l'esprit ouvert pour apprendre de nouvelles choses. Apprenez chaque jour de tout le monde, de vos clients, de vos concurrents, de vos amis. Et que vraiment votre vision soit vraiment définie, écrite quelque part et que ça soit clair pour vous-même. Ensuite, je pense que si vous avez ça, le reste, formez-vous. Continuez pas à vous former, allez dans les formations, apprenez, résumez. Et un jour, on se retrouvera tous au sommet.
Merci beaucoup. C'est comme si Jael était avec nous pendant le pause café. Pourquoi je dis ça? Parce que pendant le pause café, Iyin, qui a fait le Flotaway dont on a parlé, société milliardaire, en dollars, avait dit qu'il était actuellement en formation pour une maîtrise. Why are you doing a master's degree?
Well, okay. So I'm doing a master's degree in University of Lagos for 3 reasons. I think the first thing is that what I've realized about a lot of the people who have been somewhat successful in entrepreneurship is that they're very happy to tell their story, but they haven't scientifically distilled the success factors into something that other people can study and that can improve the practice of entrepreneurship. The beauty of, one of the good things that the white people left us is master's degrees, which can help us inquire, oh, why did this succeed? What were the success factors? So I want to actually develop it into something other people can leverage. Second of all, I ultimately want to become a professor. So I'm actually trying to do my PhD, you know. And then the third thing is, I think one of the problems that the education system in Nigeria has, I'm doing mine in University of Lagos. So one of the problems the ecosystem, the education ecosystem has is not enough practice. So not enough people who've actually gone out there, done it, and it speaks to the issue that he mentioned, because in other societies, learning is for creating value, not for printing certificates. Unfortunately, in Africa, we've done an incredible job of divorcing value that you gain, that you should create by learning, from the study, which it should not be so. So that's why, you know, a lot of our graduates are unemployable, which shouldn't make any sense. We're a continent of average age of 19. We will not survive. We cannot be productive if we have a society of dependence. So, especially because they're young, we have to actually make a conscious effort to help our young people to become value creators as early as possible. It doesn't necessarily mean entrepreneurship, but at the very least, they have to be doing some work. But I wanted to quickly end for my own last words. Is that okay, sir? Okay. Success in entrepreneurship is a direct result of service and sacrifice. The impression we create about entrepreneurship in Africa is that success means becoming rich. And it's not untrue that you become rich. You should be, if you're creating value, you should be able to capture some of that value. But I think we need to start reorienting our minds from dollars in the bank to how many people can actually use this service and get value out of it, such that it can help their lives. And then the amount of hard work it takes to actually create that service that can impact people's lives. I think it will change a lot of the way people look at entrepreneurship. But I feel like we've joined the gospel of entrepreneurship. It's like the prosperity gospel. You know, tell people, if you become an entrepreneur, you'll be rich. You'll be rich, your life will change. If you're rich, you know, and you're not actually creating a service that impacts people's lives, it's only a matter of time. And if you are successful and you did not pay the price of success, it's only a matter of time. So success in entrepreneurship is a direct result of service and sacrifice.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. On va arrêter ici et je pense que le panel nous a beaucoup apporté cet après-midi. Une chose que moi je remarque pour ma part, c'est que tous les mots par finition ont réussi le métier. Mais ce sont des gens qui ne sont pas du tout complets. Ils font leur travail, ils sont humbles, et comme vous les voyez comme ça, parce que je ne vois pas de diamant, je ne vois pas de or, je ne vois pas de Rolex, je ne vois pas de Louis Vuitton, et tout ça et tout ça. C'est vite. Et merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, merci d'ovationner très très fort pour ce panel.